The shriek cut through the peaceful afternoon like a seagull choking on a French fry. There she was, marching across the sand with the determination of someone about to demand a manager at the beach itself. Her oversized designer sunglasses reflected the sun like twin disco balls, and her hot pink cover-up billowed dramatically despite the complete lack of wind. In one manicured hand, she clutched a half-melted iced coffee that had definitely seen better days. In the other, she waved what appeared to be a soggy beach towel like it was evidence in a murder trial. All this fury directed at me, a guy who had committed the unforgivable crime of sitting in an empty beach chair that had been abandoned for the better part of a workday. My name's Tom Garrison, and I run a small auto repair shop in Sandpiper Bay, Florida. After 6 straight days of dealing with transmission rebuilds and oil changes in 90 degrees heat, I'd finally carved out a Saturday afternoon for myself. The plan was simple. Drive down to Turtle Cove Beach, find a quiet spot, crack open my cooler of cold drinks, and watch the waves while working on my tan that currently looked like I'd been dipped halfway into a vat of bronze paint. What I hadn't planned on was becoming the target of Linda Patterson's wrath, though, at that moment, I didn't yet know her name, or that she considered herself the unofficial sheriff of beach chair protocol. Linda was 47 years old, according to the business card she would later thrust in my face, and ran a local real estate agency called Patterson Premier Properties. She had that particular look of someone who spent a fortune trying to look younger, but only succeeded in looking expensive. Her platinum blonde hair was teased into a style that defied both gravity and good taste, and she wore enough jewelry to set off a metal detector from 50 feet away. The beach, she would inform me in a voice loud enough to attract dolphins, was her domain. She'd been coming to this exact spot for 15 years. And she had a system that I had apparently violated by sitting in what she claimed was her rightfully reserved chair. The chair in question was a standard blue and white striped beach chair that had seen better decades. When I'd arrived at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it had been sitting there empty, except for a damp, sandy towel that looked like it had been through a hurricane. The towel was more sand than fabric at this point, and it was hanging off the back of the chair by one corner, clearly abandoned. I'd looked around, waited a reasonable 5 minutes to see if anyone was coming back for it, then figured it was fair game. I'd set the towel aside on the sand, settled into the chair with my cooler beside me, and had been peacefully enjoying my afternoon for all of 20 minutes before Hurricane Linda made landfall. She planted herself directly in front of me, blocking my view of the ocean and casting a shadow that smelled aggressively of coconut sunscreen and entitlement. Her voice reached a pitch that made nearby children stop building sand castles to stare. She informed me that she had placed that towel on that chair at 6 o'clock this morning, which by her calculation gave her exclusive accesso to it for the entire day. The fact that she hadn't actually been using it for the past 8 hours was apparently completely irrelevant. She'd been at brunch, then shopping, then getting her nails done, but the chair was hers because she'd marked it with her towel. It was beach law, she insisted, and everyone knew it. I tried to explain calmly that leaving a towel on a chair for 8 hours while you went about your day wasn't exactly reasonable. The beach was packed, families were searching for places to sit, and here was this empty chair being held hostage by a piece of terry cloth. But Linda wasn't interested in logic. She pulled out her phone and started recording me, narrating to her future audience that she'd caught a beach thief red-handed. She zoomed in on my face, then on the chair, then on her precious towel that I'd carefully folded and placed on the sand. This was going on her neighborhood Facebook page, she announced, and I would be banned from Turtle Cove Beach forever. The crowd that had started gathering wasn't exactly on her side. A family nearby shook their heads and muttered about entitled tourists, even though Linda loudly proclaimed she was a local. A group of college kids started filming, too, but they were definitely not documenting the injustice Linda thought she was exposing. An elderly couple actually applauded when I refused to move, with the husband calling out that he'd watched that chair sit empty since breakfast. But Linda was too deep in her righteousness to notice she was losing the crowd. She decided to escalate to the nuclear option. She called 911. The conversation with the dispatcher was a thing of beauty, especially since Linda had her phone on speaker so she could continue recording with her other hand. She reported a theft in progress, describing me as an aggressive male who had stolen her property and was refusing to return it. When the dispatcher asked what exactly had been stolen, Linda's response that it was a beach chair was met with a long pause. The dispatcher then asked if she owned the beach chair, to which Linda had to admit that no, it belonged to the beach. But she'd reserved it with her towel, she insisted, her voice getting shriller with each word. The dispatcher, with the patience of a saint, explained that placing a towel on public property didn't constitute ownership or reservation rights. Linda demanded to speak to the dispatcher's supervisor. While Linda was arguing with emergency services about the legal implications of towel placement, I decided to make myself more comfortable. I pulled out a sandwich from my cooler, cracked open a cold soda, and settled in for the show. The crowd was growing, and someone had started a play-by-play commentary that had people laughing. Linda's face was turning a shade of red that had nothing to do with sun exposure. She hung up on the dispatcher and announced she was calling the beach patrol, then the mayor's office, then her lawyer. Each call went worse than the last, with various officials explaining that no, towel placement was not a legally binding reservation system. Finally, Linda decided to take matters into her own hands. She grabbed the arm of the chair and tried to tip me out of it, screaming that possession was 9/10 of the law and she was taking back what was hers. What she hadn't counted on was the chair being one of those old-style heavy ones and her designer sandals having absolutely no traction in the sand. She pulled, lost her footing, and went sprawling backward in a spectacular display that sent her iced coffee flying in a perfect arc. The coffee landed squarely on her designer beach bag, soaking through to what sounded like an expensive phone hitting liquid. The crowd actually applauded, but Linda wasn't done. She scrambled to her feet, sand stuck to every exposed surface where her sunscreen acted like glue, and announced she was making a citizen's arrest. She actually tried to grab my wrist while shouting that I was under arrest for grand theft beach chair. That's when the actual beach patrol showed up, probably called by someone in the crowd who was concerned things were about to get physical. Officer Daniel Reeves, according to his badge, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else as Linda immediately launched into her tale of persecution and property theft. Officer Reeves listened patiently, then asked Linda if she had been using the chair when I sat in it. No, but she'd reserved it. Had she been anywhere near the chair in the past 8 hours? Well, no, but the towel was there. Did she understand that the beach was public property and that leaving personal items unattended for extended periods could actually result in them being removed as abandoned property? Linda's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Then Officer Reeves delivered the killing blow. Not only was I not in any trouble, but Linda could actually be cited for harassment and disturbing the peace if she continued her behavior. The look on Linda's face was priceless. She went from righteous fury to disbelief to embarrassment in the span of 3 seconds. But instead of accepting defeat gracefully, she doubled down. She accused Officer Reeves of being in on the conspiracy, suggested I'd probably paid him off, and demanded his badge number. That's when Officer Reeves had enough. He pulled out his citation pad and started writing. Linda received a $200 fine for disorderly conduct and a formal warning that any further harassment would result in criminal charges. The fine had to be paid within 30 days, or it would double and potentially result in a court appearance. Linda snatched the citation with shaking hands, her perfectly manicured nails now chipped from her fall in the sand. She looked around at the crowd of beachgoers, all of whom were still filming or watching with amusement. Someone had already posted a video titled, "Beach Karen Gets Owned," that was rapidly accumulating views. Her face crumpled as the reality hit her. Not only had she failed to reclaim her chair, she was now $200 poorer and about to become a viral sensation for all the wrong reasons. She grabbed her sand-covered designer bag, her ruined towel, and what was left of her dignity, and stomped off toward the parking lot, muttering threats about lawsuits and personal serpientes that nobody took seriously. Officer Reeves watched her go, then turned to me with a tired smile and suggested I enjoy the rest of my afternoon in peace. The chair was mine for as long as I wanted.